My name is Hannah, and this My name is Hannah. My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all. So it's just another day in quarantine, another get ready with me. I'm just getting ready today, just like normal, putting on my makeup so that I can feel more human. And I'm just going to be writing and probably cleaning and cooking and maybe quilting. I'm hoping I'll have a little bit of time to work on a quilt that I've been working on forever. I'm going to talk about that a little bit during the Get Ready With Me. I'm also going to be able to use, I'm really grateful to be able to use, again, some new makeup in this Get Ready With Me. It's so awesome to be able to do that. I feel like it just adds a little bit of beef to the meat of the video. Aether Beauty sent me their cheek palette. It's the Crystal Charge cheek palette in Ruby, and I love it. It's got these lovely rich shades in it and a really pretty highlight. So I'm going to demo that for you. And then I got this from Octoly. It's the Rouge Volupte Shine, the YSL Rouge Volupte Shine. It's not a new product. It just happened to be in my free store. I'm going to try it on for you. It's like a nice shiny coral color, and I'll talk a little bit about why I wanted to review it. So it's just gonna be a regular Get Ready With Me, chatting about how things are going, staying connected, getting some content out there. And in addition, if you're interested in those two products, you'll get to see me showcase and review them. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So I actually already have my eyes primed, and I already have my skin primed, in case you can't tell by the way that I'm glistening like what does Teresa always say? Like some meat, what does she say? The meat sweats. That's like the look I'm always going for. That's what I love about the VDL Lumi Layer Primer. So in case you can't tell by the fact that I look like I've got the meat sweats, I'm already primed. I'm gonna do some base though. I'm gonna go right in with my standbys these days, the Erin's Faces concealer and the ColourPop concealer. I'm using the Erin's Faces one, as we all know at this point, basically as a foundation, and I'm gonna use some green color corrector with it. I'm really into this thing of like filming myself getting ready as a way of checking in, and it frees me up to like talk about what I've been thinking about, and I really enjoy that kind of content. I enjoy watching it in other people. Like I enjoy when other people make this kind of content, and I also enjoy filming it. I love the comments that you guys leave on these kinds of videos where we're just kind of talking over what's going on and building each other up and just supporting each other. I feel like there's a lot of just saying in the comments like, me too, girl, like me too. I've been feeling like that too, and that is so nourishing. So I'm all about this life, but it feels a little bit silly when I'm just like putting on the same base over and over again, but maybe it's helpful. Hold on, I left my color corrector on my vanity. Maybe there is something good about it in that you're seeing me use the same products over and over again, which isn't what we usually see on YouTube. We usually see like something new and novel every time, and we see people trying like a new foundation every day, and it gives this impression that it's normal and healthy to have like a vast array of something like foundation. Whereas for me, I feel like it makes sense to have a vast array of like a kind of color cosmetic that you enjoy trying different types of, and you enjoy having variety. But when it comes to the base, like a perfected base, I feel like it makes sense to find what works for you and stick to it. I know not everyone feels that way. Some people really love having a variety for base, and obviously if that's you, if it brings you a lot of joy, I'm not moralizing against it or anything. I just think that it's nice to see the other version, because both are fine, to each her own. Both are fine if it's fine for that person, you know what I mean? If it's not going to put you out or cause you to spend more money than you have to spend and then you should be spending. But one of those ways of owning base products like foundation and concealer, one of those ways is overrepresented on YouTube and one is vastly underrepresented. So I'm glad to be able to like hold down the fort for the people who just want a couple of base products that work the best for them. I was like talking about how I feel weird about showcasing that, and then I just talked myself into it actually being a good thing. So I hope that it's actually that way for you guys and that you're not just so bored of seeing me put my same foundation product, which is this concealer, and my same color corrector on day after day after day. So that's the base with the color corrector and Erin's Faces concealer. I'm feeling like it looks pretty even. So I'm just gonna put the tiniest bit of this ColourPop concealer. I have to say, I'm not liking it. I'm not liking this ColourPop concealer. I pulled it out of my giveaway box because I ran out of all the concealers that I had. So the ones that I was using were the YSL one that was in my empties pretty recently, I think. The YSL Full Cover Touche Eclat. High Cover, that's what it's called, in the lightest shades, good match for me. Then I also had my one from Makeup Forever, which is the super skin-like formula that I really, really love. And I'd gotten so used to it, I had started to take its skin-like quality for granted, I think. And even though this even though this ColourPop concealer is really creamy and lovely, and I do love that about it. I like that it's not cakey, and I like that it feels moisturizing. Even though that's true about it, I feel like it's thick and it just blends a little bit streakier. It's a great concealer, so I don't think that it's too thick just objectively, or that it's a very streaky concealer just objectively. I don't feel like that at all. I think it's one of the best concealers on the market, especially in its price range. I think it's fantastic. But compared to the one from Makeup Forever, it just isn't as skin-like. It's just not as smooth. It's not as seamless. I sometimes find that I'm like, I feel like maybe I'm over blending it or something, and I can sort of see it on the skin, or it picks up a little bit. Not badly, again, not badly, not in a way that would make it something that I wouldn't recommend, because it actually is one that I would recommend, especially if you're looking for something like under $10. But I really miss the one from Makeup Forever. I think I'm gonna replace it and actually go ahead and give this one away. I'm just using this one while I wait for that day to come. Thank you guys so much, those of you who have been inquiring about how my writing project is going. I feel like I wish I could share more, but especially in the realm of writing, I think one of the things I really love about writing is that you can keep it to yourself until it's done. You know, it's like if I'm working on a poem, I can work on it and work on it and work on it, and it can go through phase after phase after phase, and it can be a draft, and it can get longer and get shorter, and it can change form and evolve, and I can chop off the top, and you know, like it can go through all these phases. I can let it sit, marinate, think about it, live my life, return to it a wiser person, use what I've learned from living my life to inform the next revision. I can go through all of those phases of it until I feel like it is just like crystallized into perfection, like its final form. Then I can give it to someone to read, and they're not party to any of the messy stuff. One of the things that's really good for me about YouTube is that even though there's an editing process, right? So I can edit out the too messy stuff. I can edit out some of it. Even though that's true, by its very nature, it's messy, right? You're like seeing the nature of the form is that you're like seeing me put my makeup on, hearing Sadie make a fuss. Joe and Sadie are being really cute, but the way that the lights and camera are set up, I don't think that they can easily come over here and be in the frame. It's like one of the drawbacks of this new setup. Not that Joe would be in the frame anyway. You wouldn't be able to behold his full cuteness unless you happen to follow him on Instagram. You can behold his full cuteness on Instagram every day. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so the YouTube, what I create, like the videos that I create on YouTube, they are so much less perfect. Their final form is something that's so much less perfect than the final form of the things that I create in writing. So it's been healthy for me because it's uncomfortable. It's always been uncomfortable for me. I love to be able to keep something hidden until I feel like it's perfect and then share it. And I'm okay with continuing to do that in the realm of poetry. I feel like that's just part of the form, and other kinds of writing too. I'm also an essayist. I also write nonfiction, creative nonfiction prose. But even in that form, I feel like it's just a process of refining and polishing and refining and revising and perfecting before it even makes it to the outside world. And this is all just to say that I wish I could share more with you, but I'm not, because it's secret while I'm still working on it. But it was kind of a big step for me even to say that I have a big writing project that I'm working on. And it's weird, but I felt a little weird even about doing that. I just felt, I was like, am I sharing too much? Because go figure, I mean, it's just how I feel about that kind of work. But the amazing thing about it, the amazing unexpected benefit was that then I'm getting all these comments of people being like, "You go, girl!" Like, I hope the writing's going well, and can't wait to like see what you're doing and all of this stuff. And that has been so helpful, even though it's very abstract and it's just based on, you know, a little bit of information. It's still so meaningful to me. So thank you, everyone who has been cheering me on. Those comments have really been well taken. I really don't feel like putting on any eyeshadow today, and I was planning to put nothing on my eyes, but then I realized that because I'm going to demo this Aether Beauty palette, I can put it on my eyes. So I'm just going to sweep it onto both my eyes and my cheeks, and that'll be great because I feel like I can make use of all three shades. If I'm doing something that's like dimensional on cheeks and eyes, I can make use of all three shades. So I'm going to start with the shade that I like the best, which is the deeper one. I know it's like this palette, there are two of them. There's a lighter one and a deeper one, and this is obviously the one that's designed for deeper skin tones, but it's just the one I like better because I like the tones better. I like these sort of rich tones as opposed to the very pale pinks that are in the other one. It's also very pretty. It's just, I would rather like work with these and make them work for me and, you know, use a light hand and blend it and make it work and then get the color tone that I like. I'd rather do that than just have the one that's theoretically for my skin tone but not like the undertones as much. So I'm going to work with this one with a light hand pretty delicately with a very fluffy brush. This is a Rephr 05, starting with this deep shade but going gently and making it something that doesn't overwhelm my skin tone. I have tested out this palette already, so I do know that it's possible. They're pigmented, but they're very blendable, so I can make it work. Gosh, I really love that. And you know, it's looking quite glossy. I don't think that there's much shine in these blushes. I think they're either matte or maybe a little bit satin. I think it's the combination of the Erin's Faces concealer and the VDL Lumilayer primer shining through from underneath. And that is awesome. I just love that the complexion products are kind of like still present on my face with the blush instead of the blush obscuring them. I like feeling like all of the products on my face are melting together into one thing and working together instead of like covering each other up. So I'm gonna go in with the lighter pink on this brush, which is another Rephr brush. It's not part of the like full set. It's the PO9A. It might even be, it's either one of the ones that you can buy separately, or it might even have been like a tester brush, but it's sort of like this pointed, like an egg-shaped brush with a little bit more of a point. So I'm going to go into the lighter pink and I'm going to put that down on my eyes, but I'm also going to bring it onto my cheeks a little bit so that they're blended together. Okay, I went a bit harder on my lids than I meant to, but I kind of love it. I feel like with a ton of mascara on the top and bottom lashes, it'll be really kind of a special look and a bit more impactful than I intended. I'm gonna go in now back with the fluffy brush, the big fluffy brush, and into the highlight, and I'm gonna blend the highlight. It's a little dark for me. It's kind of like a, it's like a slightly rosy and slightly goldy champagne-y highlight. I don't think it's one that I could kind of put all over. I think it's going to add a little bit of color. So I'm going to keep it more on the cheekbones, but I'm going to blend it in really aggressively to the product that's already there and maybe onto the lids as well. We'll see how it goes. Oh, it's shiny. Oh, it's really shiny. It's so pretty. It's glossy. So I swept a little bit of it onto the lids casually as I was going, not enough to make the lids sort of different in texture, like a shiny texture, but just to kind of make it all cohesive, blend it all out a little bit. But I'm kind of liking this sort of matte pink wash on the eyes. I mean, I wasn't intending to do it, but I really like it. I like how casual and yet kind of impactful it looks. It's like, it's both cohesive and easy looking and different, editorial. I'm for it. All right, that's gonna be it for complexion and for my eyes. except for mascara. I'm gonna go ahead and layer on a whole bunch of mascara. This is the kind of look to which I like to add lots of mascara, like an impactful amount. So I'm gonna do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I feel like I didn't add as impactful an amount of mascara as I maybe would have if I were like going out to be in the world, like going to an event or something and like this was the look. But you know, it's enough. It's working with the look and I like it. I like this insane cherub cheeked thing that I have going on right now. The cheek is pretty impressively glossy. And I didn't realize that Aether Beauty was like a one-woman operation. It's like independently owned, woman-owned, a really small business, and they make amazing products. And it's very, I mean, I think you guys know, but it's like very eco-friendly. They don't use magnets or mirrors in their packaging so that it will be completely and fully recyclable. There's this strap that goes around it instead, which is awesome. Really focused on sustainability. Really cool brand. They sent this to me and I'm very grateful. It's the first time I've ever tried anything from Aether Beauty. They just released a very beautiful eyeshadow palette. It's an all matte palette. It's the Joshua Tree palette. I'll put a picture of it up right now. And I've heard that the formula is really good. I think Sarah Hubler is reviewing it. I also saw that Khaki is reviewing it. I'll try to link their reviews down below in case you're interested. They did offer to send it to me and I was like, you know, I'm not an all matte palette girl. I was like, I really appreciate the offer, but to be completely honest, I'm not your reviewer for that product because, you know, I could probably test the eyeshadows out and speak to them, but I'm not gonna fall absolutely in love with that palette because I just don't love like a colorful matte palette as a rule, no matter how good the formula is. So they sent this instead, which is just really wonderful because this is definitely much more up my alley. And I feel like I was able to give a much more enthusiastic like review experience video so far with this. This isn't my final review. This is only like the third time I've used this, but I've, you know, used enough of it to know that the formula is very, very good. And it will definitely be in my reckoning at some point in the future. And I can talk about whether it wooed me enough to cause me to decide to keep it. I wish that you could see Sadie right now. She's like really going ham because there's a pigeon outside. The same thing that has been happening has happened, which is that I sat down with all these good intentions to like talk about my feelings and about life and about what's going on with the Get Ready With Me as the backdrop. But then I feel like complexion, no, but cheeks and eyes, I feel like are so exciting that I end up just talking about the makeup while I'm doing that. And now we get to the brows, and the brows are going to take a long time and be relatively boring. So I can talk about the things that I meant to talk about while I'm doing my brows. Although I have been doing my brows in a little bit of a new way. And when we get to the new stuff, the relevant new stuff, I'll tell you, because I'm excited to share it with you. But the first part of it is just getting a bunch of soap gunk into my brows and getting them brushed up. And you guys don't need me to tell you about that while I'm doing it. So I will tell you why I brought up the thing of, you know, thanking you for supporting me, however abstract your knowledge is of my project, supporting me in it. Because something I've been thinking about over the past couple of days is something similar to what I talked about in my last Get Ready With Me, which is just the issue of like tasks being harder. And in the last Get Ready With Me, I was talking about all of the sort of mundane tasks of adult life. So just having to respond to emails, having to do administrative things for, you know, our business or for health or things like that. Those kinds of things just feeling way harder than they usually feel because it's just hard to process what's going on right now. And so a lot of energy is being spent on that processing. And over the past couple of days, I've been frustrated with a similar effect going on in my writing life. I'm no stranger to really focusing for hours and hours on end for days and days on end on a writing project. It's my preferred mode when I get the chance to do that, like when I've gone to artist colonies and really been in isolation for like sometimes a month or 2 months at a time and been able to like only write. Whenever I've gotten the chance to do that, it's heaven. Like that's what the life that I want, you know? This is a little bit different because Joe is here. It's not total isolation for me, and also I still have to cook. And when I've been to artist colonies, food has been provided. So it's just like this amazing relinquishing of all, really all adult responsibility and just total focus on the work. So this is a little bit different because there are still sort of these trappings. There's like relationship, work existing just in the everyday, and there's also the pleasure of my relationship here. So it's not like all bad. And cooking obviously isn't bad either. In fact, the times when I've been to artist colonies, after about 3 weeks, maybe 3, 4 weeks, I start to kind of miss cooking. It's nice to have a break at the beginning, but I really love cooking and I love a lot of the food that I cook. So it's like I do start to miss it. It's not like I would want to never cook again or something. So it's great. Like this is a lovely in-between version of that. Like I have the time, it's not ideal that the reason that I have the time is that we can't work at our job. That's not ideal. But since we can't, I have all this time to work on this project and I'm able to work on it from like 6 in the morning until I run out of steam, which is often like mid-afternoon. And then sometimes I can pick it back up again in the late afternoon or after dinner, depending on how the rest of the day went energetically. So that's kind of amazing. Like that's a lot. And in a weird way, it's like a twisted version of my dream life, like my dream schedule. So I'm not undervaluing that. Like I love being able to work on my writing, but I have been struggling, especially over the past couple of days, with just this feeling like my brain isn't working like it usually works. I don't feel like the quality of the work that I'm producing is lower than usual, but I feel like it's taking longer to get it out. I feel like I'll work for like a couple of hours on one paragraph and it'll be the same paragraph that I would have ended up with in normal times if I'd been working on this same project, but it's like it would have only taken me 1 hour. If, and instead it took 2 or it took 3 or, that kind of thing. And that's just frustrating for me. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to feel like slower than you usually are or dumber than you usually are. There have been times when I've been writing along pretty fluidly and then I've gotten stuck on a word and I like can't remember the word. And then I remember the word and it's something like civic or artificial, like not complicated, not elusive words, not vocabulary words. I just couldn't remember the word. And that never happens to me. Like I can't do basic math, but I never forget a word like that, So it's just been like the long arm of the anxiety over the coronavirus has like reached into my life and stirred me up about getting basic tasks done. And I'm realizing since I filmed that other Get Ready With Me and talked about it, that it's also reaching into my writing life, reaching into my brain and just making it harder to do the thing that I love, even though I'm being given more time to do the thing that I love. So that's part of why I really appreciate you guys cheering me on, because it's been hard and I wanted to bring it up in case similar stuff's going on for you guys. Like maybe you can't work and you're stuck at home and you're finally getting time to cook a lot or work on other stuff, like things around the house, projects around the house that you usually don't have time to work on, and you're frustrated that you're finding that it's something that you've always wanted to do, but now because you're getting the chance to do it under these circumstances, you find that you can't take as much pleasure in it as you hoped that you would, or that that you would be taking in it if you'd gotten the chance to do it under different circumstances. I'm only bringing it up just to say it's hard. I'm not trying to like complain to you. I'm trying to say if you are experiencing the same thing, it's hard, but it's also normal. Of course it's this way. And I think that it's just important to remember that. So that's why I'm bringing it up. So we can all be like, yeah, we acknowledge that it's hard. So here's what I've been doing with my brows. I've been getting them all nice and soaped and pasted to my face in the way that I kind of have showed you before, like laminated down and really pressing them into my skin with the soap, the soap gunk. And that's kind of how I would have left it before. But I've been taking the spoolie and like grooming from about halfway through my brow, just sort of curving over the edge to make a really sharp, groomed, downward sloping line. So just making them like way more sharp from like halfway across. So they almost look drawn on. It's like a very illustrative brow. And then because I needed the brows to be in their sort of natural place in order to get that clean shape, I wasn't able to like move the hairs around and fill in patches. So it means that when they're pasted down like this, they're a little bit more patchy than usual. So then I've been going in with an eyeliner just because I'm out of the eyebrow because the eyebrow pencil side of this spoolie that I've been using, that's how I think of it. It's the benefit precisely my brow. I don't think of it as a brow pencil with a spoolie on the end. I think of it as a spoolie, like a good spoolie that happens to have a little brow pencil on the end in case I ever need it. So I have used up that brow pencil. So I've just been going in with whatever I can grab, like even stuff that doesn't match my brows. I've been really going crazy with it. Today I'm going to use this Persona one because it's kind of cool toned and a little bit darker than the other brown eyeliner that I have on hand. And I'm just using the teeniest bit. I'm just sticking it really lightly into those patchy spots. I'm not filling in my whole brow with it. I'm just sticking it into those patchy spots. And in some cases, I've been sort of extending the downward tail of my brow a little bit, just for kind of like a sharper look. And then what I've actually been doing most days as well is bringing just the very front hairs of my brows up. There's like a lot of soap in them today, so I'm not sure this is going to work out the way that it has been. Yeah, it's making it look kind of messy. But I'm trying to show you for the sake of showing you. I feel like I need... Yeah, there's so much soap in them that that spoolie was giving me trouble, but I feel like I can do it with this. I think this is like it's a Wayne Goss brow tool. So it's got this plasticky, just like a little plastic brush on one end that's very precise. Yeah, there we go. I don't know if those will look even from a distance. It's kind of hard for me to tell because I'm using this little tiny mirror, but I'm tired with messing with them. If they don't look even, it's fine. It's fine. Just my eyebrows for one day. The point is just that I've been enjoying doing this like more brushed up and more kind of wild and natural look on closer to the middle, and then the further they get to the outside, the more groomed and pasted down they get until the end is just this like long sharp tail. That's the idea. I don't know how well I'm executing it right now. I'm not saying this is like the best way to do your brows ever in history. It's just new for me, and I've been really enjoying playing around with it, and I've been liking the effect a lot. I feel like it sort of suits the aesthetic of the rest of my face these days. Oh, as long as I have this pencil out, I'm gonna put my mole back on. I can't tell you about the quilt and put the lip product on at the same time, and the lip product is the only thing left. And I was just talking about my eyebrows. So I'm gonna tell you about the quilt first, and then we're gonna talk about the lip product and put it on. So I started this quilt forever ago when we still lived in Michigan. I made a test quilt, a small quilt that I finished. It was okay. It was just like my first quilt ever. So I was like trying out quilting for the first time. And I'm like a little bit of a corner cutter. Like I'm more interested in the artistic effect of it than the perfection of it. I think some people love quilting because they love being exacting. But I like imagining the overall effect of the way that I'm putting together the patterns and the stitching rather than going through the paces of being exacting. So I had to figure out where I need to draw the how far I can push it in quilting. And I kind of learned like where I need to rein myself in and be more exacting and where I can kind of let go. I just figured out what quilting is going to be like for me by solving some problems well and some problems poorly with the first quilt. And I do like the first quilt. I can't get it right now because I'm like blocked from stuff, but you might have seen it in my house tour. I think it was over the back of my blue chair, my gray blue chair in the apartment tour. I'll show it to you sometime. But he did bring over the squares of the other quilt. So the first quilt is a little bit small. It's like a one-person quilt. And then I wanted to make a really huge quilt that could be like our forever quilt that covers our entire bed. And the part of quilting that I didn't like the first time around was the quilting part. And I got really like where you go through and you stitch over not, so you put together all of the squares, and I did like that part, and then you have to go over and quilt it, like stitch the front to the back of the quilt, and I didn't really like that part. So I decided I wanted to try a big quilt that would take a really long time to make, that would be hand stitched. I didn't like quilting on the machine. And so I figured out, I did a bunch of research, and I figured out that there's a method of quilting called quilt as you go. So usually when you quilt, you just piece together the top layer of cotton, and then when you quilt it together, you sandwich the quilt layer that you've made by putting together all of the pieces into a pattern. You take that, you get a big piece of cotton underneath, and then you sandwich some batting, you know, the warm stuff in between, and then you stitch through the whole 3-layer sandwich, and that's the quilting part where you're quilting it all together. So this method, quilt as you go, you sew the top layer to the batting, each chunk at a time, like square by square, and then you sew the big pieces of already quilted batting onto each other together. And then when you're quilting the entire quilt, you only have to go like in lines, like on a grid along the lines of places that you stitched it together. Like you're sewing the top layer and the batting, which are already quilted together, to the back layer. So you don't have to put as many stitches all the way through the entire 3-layer sandwich. I'm like giving a full but very bumbling explanation of quilt as you go right now. If you want to know more, and I've done a really terrible job of explaining it, then you can look it up with Google on the internet. This is just to say that I started this huge quilt as you go quilt. So what that means is that I'm making these big squares. So like this is the size of one square. It's really huge. And I've quilted together. This one has kind of got similar colors in all of the pieces, so it might not be a good example. Let me find a different one. Oh yeah, this is a better, more quilty example. So you can see like the quilt pattern, the flying geese quilt pattern, that I also did it in these, it's just that they match better. And so this is the size of it. And so I sewed these pieces all together on my sewing machine. And then I went through with thick Japanese quilting thread and a big thick needle, and I quilted along the little lines. I sewed it to the batting. And I've been doing this with square after square after square. I started and I made a bunch of progress like years ago when I was still in graduate school and we lived in Ann Arbor. Then we moved to LA, our lives got really busy, and I pretty much stopped working on the quilt. So I've got, I think, 26 of these huge squares. I think it's going to be 6 by 6, and I think I just need to make 2 more rows, so 12 more squares, and then I'll be able to, is that correct? I'm probably doing the math horribly, but I counted last night and I think I just need to make 12 more squares. All of the squares that I have are all quilted to their backing, and then the only step after that will be to stitch them all together and then to hand quilt through all of the seams, like the seams where these pieces were sewn to each other. I did not mean to launch into such a long explanation of what I'm doing with this quilt and what style of quilting it is. And I'm sorry if it was super boring. I just wanted to show off the quilt squares to you. So this one is like really beautiful, I think. It's all like blues and grays and blacks. So my idea is to do sort of a gradient. So the ones like this one that I held up at the beginning, the lighter grays and blues will be kind of closer to the top. And then as you get closer to the bottom of the quilt, you'll get into like these darker ones. This is a really good one. These darker ones will be towards the bottom. I actually even have some that are much more abstract and just very heavily stitched. So this is just one big piece of fabric, but I did a bunch of stitching, like abstract stitching all over it so that it's stitched to its backing. And so there are going to be some pieces like that. All of the squares are different. This one is incredibly special because I gave it to my friend Simbri, you know, Simbri, who has the Instagram account, and I'm always talking about her on my channel. She does some like embroidery stuff. She did the little embroidery of Sadie that was hanging in the background of a video for a couple of videos like a while back when I still had the concrete wall. And I gave her this one that I hadn't quilted yet, and she quilted these little ladies' torsos all over it. Can you even? How incredibly beautiful is that? Here's this little one. So Simbri used this like beautiful embroidery of ladies, nudie ladies, to quilt the backing of this one onto itself. And that's all I'm gonna show you. Or let me see. Ooh. So these are some of the ones that are closer to that are gonna be closer to the bottom. And some of them I've gone in and done like some intricate embroidery for the quilting just in bits and pieces. And see, all of these lines are quilted. So this is one that took a really long time to hand stitch all of those bits. Okay, the point of me telling you this is just to say that these quilt pieces were over at our studio. They were, I left them there when we had to leave, and we had the opportunity last week to go over there on one day and get anything that we had left behind and pick up our mail. I decided to bring the quilt stuff back over to the apartment. Our apartment, the reason I didn't bring it originally was because it takes up a lot of space. And also we originally didn't bring a sewing machine over because we were like, where are we gonna store it? There's just no room for it. But that was before we had made like the mental shift to thinking of our apartment during this quarantine time as being just incredibly utilitarian. It's no longer got the just elegant, airy interior design feeling that it had before, because we need to make like serious use of it in a really intense way as a workplace and an apartment. So since I guess the scales have fallen from our eyes about that, we've realized that we could bring a machine over here and just set it up and take it down if we need to do any sewing. And we decided to bring it over so that we can make masks. Like we don't have any masks, and these days in LA, you're not allowed to go out without a mask on. So we are going to make we're starting to make our own. Joe made a couple yesterday out of some quilting cotton that they're just like ridiculously pretty. And the only elastic that we had was like this gold elastic that I used to make tango clothes. They're these like elaborate quilting cotton and gold elastic. There's like really funny, but it's just the only materials that we had. So that's what our masks look like. Anyway, we found that there was some sense in bringing the straight stitch machine over from the studio so that we can make our own masks. And because we were doing that, I was like, well, I'm going to bring my quilting stuff over. So now it's here. I never have time in my life. Like over the past 3 years, I have had no time to work on this quilt, and it's really been languishing. I think I had forgotten how beautiful it is. Like when I got the squares and I looked at them, I mean, just look at this. Look at that. I mean, I know I made it myself. I'm being like incredibly egotistical, but I didn't design these fabrics, you know? I just feel like a quilt square like this is just, it's simply just a celebration of how gorgeous these fabrics are. Like that's what's amazing about it. I was just the one to like stick them together and stitch them together, you know, but like they're just such beautiful fabrics. So now that I have the quilt squares back, I have like the fire in my loins again to finish the quilt because I want it to be on our bed. Like I want to sleep under it. I want it to finally be done after all of these years. And so it's a little project that has come kind of back to my hands that wouldn't have come back to my hands if this horrible thing hadn't happened in the world. And I think it's good to focus on that stuff. It's not like it makes it all okay or it balances out, you know, how much suffering is going on right now. But it's just nice to find some jewels in the challenge. Like it's nice to have these little things that pop up here and there that wouldn't have happened otherwise and are good, are purely good, and to like focus on them and celebrate them. So me getting back in touch with my excitement about this quilt and potentially having the chance to finish it, that's mine for today. I would love to know what yours are. Like, is there something that you wouldn't have started doing or thought of or remembered or gotten the chance to do if this horrible thing hadn't been happening in the world, that, you know, again, like doesn't erase the bad, but is at least something to celebrate? Let me know in the comments down below. I would really love to hear from you about that. Needless to say, when the quilt is done, I will show it to you. I don't think that I can do like a quilt with me or finish my quilt with me or anything like that video because it's gonna take a really long time. And once it's all quilted together, and it's gonna be in bits and pieces, like I'm gonna be working on it. I'm so excited I can't even talk. I'm gonna be working on it for just a little bit of time each day. Like I don't have that much time to work on it I have to prioritize this other project. And honestly, I prioritize YouTube. So it's just going to be, if I manage to get a ton of writing done and some videos filmed or edited on a specific day and there's still time, then I'll be working on the quilt. And I can also do the stitching, the quilt as you go hand stitching, quilting the top to the batting while we're like watching movies and shows. So I think I'm going to try to really never be without a quilt square in my hand for all of like the rest of this time when we're engaging in passive entertainment. So that'll be good. But that means that I can't really like bring you guys with me through the process. But when it's finished, you better believe I'm going to be showing it off on Instagram for sure, and probably also on YouTube because I'm going to be really proud of it. All right, let's review the lippy. So this is the Rouge Volupte Shine from Yves Saint Laurent. It's a very luxurious YSL lip product that they've had for a long time. It's not new, and to tell you the truth, it's been in my Octoly Free store forever, for months, and I just haven't requested it because even though it's a nice product, I have a lot of lip products. Lip products, it's a category in which I feel like not only do I already have more than I can comfortably keep in my Makeup Mind palace, but I always seem to be acquiring more. Like it's something I really love, so I always like want to buy them, want to accept them in PR, want to test them. I often end up wanting to keep them. I have met a lip product that I don't like. Like it's not like I never met a lip product that I don't like, but I feel like it's more frequent that I meet a lip product that I do like and want to keep. It's hard for me to part with them in the reckoning, etc., etc., etc. So for a long time, it's kind of been like the last thing I would ever do to request a lip product from Octoly. It's like, why, you know? And I requested this one for two reasons. One, I feel bad. Like I'm anxious. It's bad times. I can't afford to spend very much of my budget, and it just was like an easy way to have a thing. I'm not proud of that part of it, but I cannot pretend that that's not part of it. I have gone months without really requesting much from Octoly. I've been forgetting about it and going a long time without ever checking to see what's available. And then when I see what's available, a lot of times I'm just like, you know, I'm fine. I don't need another thing. In the midst of the just like onslaught of emotions and the challenge of dealing with this time, I was like, I'm gonna see what's on Octoly. And then one day I was like, I'm just gonna order that. I'm just gonna request that YSL. It's not really an order process because you can request something and be rejected, and that happens all the time to me and to people. But I was like, I'm just gonna request that YSL lippy and see if they'll send it to me because it'll just be a pleasure. That's like the reason. But the other reason is that it's like a orangey coral sheer. So it's a impactful color that isn't an impactful formula. And that is the quality that I love so much in the Gucci lipstick that I reviewed recently and that I've been wearing a lot and loving. So it's the Gucci Voile formula. The reason I bought that to review, one of the reasons I chose it, was that I realized I didn't have anything like that, and I've been loving it so much. And this kind of promises to be the same thing but from a different brand with a different formula and in a slightly different color, and so that attracted me as well. I feel like it's a type of lip product that I'm suddenly very interested in and that I don't really have a lot of. So that was sort of the more practical rationale. I wasn't just like a monkey on there like, order the lip product, like I need something. I felt like I could use a little something, and that was what sort of led me to consider it. And then as I considered it, I was like, you know, there are some kind of practical review reasons why it makes sense to test this out in the context of my current relationship with different types of makeup. I'm gonna put it on. It smells so good. It smells sweet and fruity, but not cheap. And I really like it. All right, this is kind of a first impressions because I've tried this on when I first opened it just to see what it looked like, but I haven't worn it yet. So I can't tell you what it's like to have it be my lippy of the day. But this isn't the first time I'm seeing it on my lips and feeling the formula on my lips. And I will tell you what I thought when I first put it on. It's more sheer, it's juicier and more sheer than the product from Gucci. It just is a little bit more oily and thin. It's a little bit more like a balmy, just in terms of its sheerness, like its level of pigment. They're close, they're similar, but this one just feels like it would be a little bit less tenacious and like it might be a little bit less impactful. Like I feel like when I put the Gucci one on, it looks and feels natural, but it really looks like I'm wearing a red lipstick. And this looks like I'm wearing some sort of sheer pigmented product, almost like maybe a gloss of some kind. And I hate to besmirch it when I haven't actually worn it, but I feel like it will not be tenacious. Whereas with the Gucci one, I always kind of felt like I could put it on and just go. It just felt a little grippier. This one feels like it might have the wear time of a gloss as well, of like a soft oily gloss, like a lip oil of some kind. It's very beautiful. I do like it a lot. It feels like a less beefy product than the Gucci lip wall. The other thing that surprised me when I first put it on is that it is so pink. And I forgot to tell you the color name, but it is called, it's not on here. I'll put it on the screen right now and I'll put it in the description box down below. But I believe that the word orange is in the color name, like this exact color. It says it's number 46, but it doesn't have the name on here. I think it was like ideal orange or acceptable orange or obvious orange, or it was like something orange. And it's not orange, it's pink. It's like one of those watermelon shears. And I'm not against it. I have, I think, decluttered, I have tended to declutter watermelon-ish colors from my, Joe and Sadie are hamming it up again. I've tended to declutter this type of color from my collection because I end up not reaching for it. It's like if I'm gonna wear a bright, I'm gonna wear a true orange or a true red, and I tend to not reach for these because I feel like it's a very youthful color and it kind of makes the girl out of me. But maybe I'll feel differently about it because it's in this sheer formula rather than like a matte formula or a satin, something super pigmented and thick that's like stamped onto the lips. Time will tell. It is a very, very lovely product, and needless to say, the component is just pure sex. With a much more intense sort of pinky eye, a very glossy cheek that I was not expecting from that Aether highlight, and this glossy watermelon lip, I'm looking much pinker and more doll-like and made up and splinky today than I was expecting to look. But I can get down with it. I can live with it. It's just, again, just another day in my apartment doing my things. Sadie, you want to be in the video? Come here. She doesn't want to be in the video. And that is it. I am going to go about my business. I have one last thing I want to say before we go. I am going to try not to talk about Patreon very much on my channel, but this is the first video that I'm filming since I launched my Patreon. And I cannot thank you guys enough, those of you who signed up. I literally, before I launched it to Joe, I was like, I think it's probably going to be like 20 people. Like I didn't expect there to be a lot of people who wanted to be my patrons, and I'm still kind of trying to like process it. But it's been amazing to see your little names pop up. I'll maybe talk about it in another video. I actually feel like it's so new right now, like it just happened over the past couple of days, that it's kind of hard for me to talk about. But I just had to say thank you because this is my first time on camera. Maybe I'll give like a more thorough check-in about it in like a check-in video or something in the future where I don't feel like I'm taking up the time of people who don't care about that. But if you are one of the people who did sign up and you have become my patron, thank you. That's it for now about that. Just thank you. And thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself right now so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.